Good now, whenever and wherever this finds you. Today I found the video to a major deliberative polling that was held in October of 2021, and I took a 51-minute video and cut it down to just over 12 minutes. So these are the highlights. All the details of the actual changes in the polling before and after. You can see that in the full video, and I'll leave the link in the descriptions. So let's get to it, and here we go.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health. I'm delighted that we are here hosting this launch event today. Our program addresses two crucial challenges facing our society. First is the global crisis of climate change. It is clear that the warming we have already caused has had devastating consequences on both planetary health and human health. And alarmingly, we are on a trajectory to cause even more irreversible damage, to end and upend tens of millions more lives if we cannot muster the political will to change course now. That brings me to the second challenge, polarization. Our civic discourse has too often been reduced to snarling sound bites. Attack ads have taken place of substantive debates, and Congress is tied in knots. But there is another way. Stanford's Center for Deliberative Democracy and the bold thinkers of Helena last month brought together 962 people who were demographically, geographically, and politically representative of all Americans, truly America in one room. First, they polled these individuals on specific policies designed to tackle global warming. Then the real work started. They gave these Americans briefings on the pros and cons of each policy. They let them question experts on both sides of the issue. They moderated thoughtful, respectful discussions, and then they polled again. As you'll hear, there were big shifts in the group that engaged in this experiment as compared to those who were in the control group. Minds opened, opinions changed, respect bloomed. This experiment points the way to solving both of the challenges that I've outlined. The policies endorsed by this group, after a careful, thoughtful process of deliberation, represents a national consensus on the actions we must take now to avert the worst consequences of global warming. And the process they went through, known as deliberative polling, offers hope for elevating our civic discourse. Because when we take the time to talk and to truly listen to one another, we find that we are more alike than we are different. And with that, I am pleased to turn the program over to Professors James Fishkin and Larry Diamond of Stanford's Center for Deliberative Democracy. Over to you, James and Larry.
Thank you, Michelle. We're thrilled to be here sharing the results of this initiative, which we think is very important. So our animated question is, what would Americans think about complex issues? They had time, space, and resources to learn, discuss, and truly think about them in depth. Now, why should we be doing this? Why don't we know a lot about what Americans think? Well, polls don't really tell us because the public is subject to rational ignorance. Most people, most of the time, are not motivated to become informed about complex issues. Furthermore, if they do talk about these issues or consult the media, they consult congenial sources, like-minded people. So they never hear the other side. And on some of the complex questions we're interested in, some of them relatively obscure, you might not even get real opinions. They may be phantom opinions, that is, like the famous Public Affairs Act of 1975, which people answered opinion polls about, but it didn't exist. It was fictional because people don't like to say they don't know, so they offer a response. Just noise, really. We don't want policy directed by just noise, and we want representative and informed opinion on the issues that are really important. So we did the largest national experiment we believe ever conducted with a control group and with a really good representative sample so that people could deliberate in depth with a sample recruited by NORC at the University of Chicago of about 1,000 deliberators in 104 small groups, and a control group that didn't do much of anything. They answered questions at the beginning when people were recruited and at the end, but they just lived their lives in between. And the control group changed hardly at all on all the questions that we asked. But the deliberating group changed in some dramatic ways. And we think those ways, collected in confidential questionnaires so that they're free of social pressure from other people, represent the public's considered judgments. We asked 72 substantive questions about climate and energy. Opinions on 68 of the 72 changed significantly after deliberation. In 66 out of the 68 questions, opinions changed significantly in the direction of doing more about climate change. Americans of all parties moved toward greater acceptance of the challenge of climate change and demand for significant action after they weighed the pros and cons in their small group discussions and after they got their questions answered in plenary sessions with competing experts who represented different points of view on the specific policy proposals. In all, they deliberated for about 10 and a half hours in video-based small group discussions.
So to conclude in discussing the results, we were very encouraged that when the American people were presented with balanced, objective information, given access to pro and con arguments on 72 different issue and opinion propositions, they thought, they deliberated, they weighed with one another, and they changed on a great many of these items, not only in statistically significant ways, but in substantively, often very large ways. And generally, they moved, first of all, closer to one another, bridging the partisan divide, and most of the time toward greater readiness to recognize that climate change is a clear and present danger to our quality of life, and that we have to do more to confront it.
Thank you, Larry. So a skeptic might ask, why should we pay attention to 1,000 people who deliberate in depth about this under good conditions when most people are not experiencing those good conditions and not effectively motivated to think about the issue? And I think there are a couple of answers. One is we can invoke the results because it's a representative sample. And in comparison to ordinary polls where the people aren't thinking, we can also identify the reasons why people are coming to these conclusions. And those conclusions have some legitimacy because it's from a representative sample. And those reasons, we're only beginning to analyze these results because we have all the small group discussions transcribed, and we'll do automated text analysis and we'll probe the reasoning behind them. But in many countries around the world where we've done deliberative polling, the results have made sense to policymakers and to the broader media because people can see the reasons why the public comes to those conclusions. So it legitimates conclusions and it provides a route to public buy-in and legitimacy for certain results. Secondly, I want to point out that these deliberations were rather remarkably conducted with the Stanford Automated Deliberation Platform. That automated deliberation platform allows small groups to moderate their own discussions, so it's eminently scalable. And the public loved the platform because they thought it provided everybody an opportunity to discuss. It controls the speaking time and the queue, and it works through the pros and cons of the issues, and it leads the group into coming up with its own key questions for the plenary sessions. Well, we think this is eminently scalable. In theory, the platform could be applied to any number, thousands, indeed, eventually millions of participants. And we also think that what we have shown in this experiment is the power of civil, nonpartisan, balanced, and evidence-based discussion to change minds. Because people are ordinarily in their filter bubbles. They're only talking to people who are like-minded primarily. They're not getting the other side of the argument. And reasonable dialogue and deliberation of a civil, nonpartisan sort opens them up to other perspectives. And we were astonished by the depolarization and the evidence-based changes across our great divisions of Texas and California, our great divisions of Republicans, Democrats, and independents, our great divisions across race and age and every other demographic that we can identify. So we think that in addition to scaling the deliberative polling, deliberative democracy process, we should have a great civic awakening of public discussion, civil discussion, conducted in an evidence-based way with our materials, other materials that all kinds of people can prepare, as long as they're balanced and evidence-based. We should hope for churches, schools, community groups, and others to convene these discussions, because the American people can understand these complex challenges and they can muster the collective political will to do something about them. And that's the final result of this experiment.
Good afternoon. My name is Henry Elkis, founder and CEO of Helena. We're a global organization focused on implementing solutions to societal problems. Our projects tackle a wide range of issues with a wide variety of approaches, from delivering protective gear to COVID-19 first responders, to investing in new approaches to energy production and storage. As you've heard, we've teamed up with Stanford's Center for Deliberative Democracy and several other wonderful partners to run this deliberative poll on climate and energy. Climate change is a defining challenge of our age. As Dean Williams said at the onset of this program, it has devastating implications for our personal health and our planetary health. It's imperative that we find new approaches to break the gridlock that has for too long stymied bold action. We went into this initiative hopeful that a deliberative poll would help point the way towards a new alignment around both the urgent need for action and the specific policies that Americans of all backgrounds might support. The results you've heard today have done just that. As you've heard throughout the event, when people receive accurate, balanced information and have the time to think deeply about it, they tend to agree. Climate change is real, action is essential, and while we might differ on the details of implementation, there is clear majority support for reaching net zero. The key question is, will these results make any difference in DC? We think they should, and we think they can. Policymakers should understand these results are the considered views of the American people. And we at Helena will be working with our partners to make sure politicians hear what the American people want.
So, how many of you have heard about this? This happened in October, and I haven't heard a word of it. I had to look this up, and only because I'm searching did I even find this. So I'm glad I can share it with you, and I hope you share it with others. I feel like a zealot in the wilderness, but I know that this is the path forward for me. And I'm asking you to consider the information in this video and what deliberative polling can do to bridge the divide in this country and find a way to support Stanford University in doing more of these and getting some attention put to them. And so do share this, and thank you for watching, and I hope you learned and enjoyed, and I'll see you down the road.